Vietnam, one of the bloodiest and most dangerous wars in American history. The Vietnam War has had a very big impact on the way Americans live today, even through countless other wars since that time, and just people just not supporting the military anymore. And it has caused many problems in America. However, the war still deserves to be respected, considering all the men who died in it. I feel like if we give respect to this war, or if we start anyway, we can start giving respect to those guys that lost their lives over there for us. And they weren't always respected. When they got home, they were treated very poorly by people who weren't patriotic, who did not care about this country. And it is unfair to them. In 1965, we began the war in Vietnam. We had been occupying Vietnam since 1959 with the French, and the French pulled out by 1965. And on November 8th of that year, the 171st Airborne Brigade on Operation Hump, War Zone D in Vietnam, were attacked by over 1,200 Viet Cong troops. 30 American soldiers fought in that battle, and almost every single one of them died. After this battle, America officially declared war on Vietnam, and we began what would be one of the longest and bloodiest wars in the history of our country. In 1968, in January of 1968, we began the Battle of Quai Son. The Battle of Quai Son was a very long battle. I had several family members who fought in Quai Son. I think my Uncle Bob was there. And very bloody war. The battle lasted around 6-7 months. Very long battle. Many young men died, but we were able to hold off the Viet Cong people, and we kept them from taking over the city of Quai Son, which was very big for us, very big victory. And then again, later that same year, we had the Battle of Ia Drang, and Ia Drang was basically the same thing. They wanted a territory in South Vietnam. We were occupying South Vietnam. We weren't going to let them take it. That became a problem when we began to run out of troops. We were having trouble holding them off completely. However, we got reinforcements in. We got, and then the RSVP, the soldiers of the Republic of South Vietnam Army, they came in and they were able to help out. We finally fought them off, and we pushed them back up to the north in the Battle of Ia Drang. And then in 1970, probably the biggest battle in the entire war that lasted 8-9 months, 1970 was the Battle of Tet Offensive. And the Tet Offensive was the entire Viet Cong army targeting small cities, certain small cities that you wouldn't think would be targeted. And they figured if they could sneak attack these small cities, the Americans wouldn't see it coming, and they could easily take over parts of South Vietnam. It worked. The Tet Offensive worked for most of the part. It's called the Tet Offensive because Tet was a holiday, was the big holiday for Vietnamese people. And throughout this entire holiday and several months prior or after, they just fought and fought and fought and fought and won all these little territories. They would attack small groups, small platoons of American soldiers, sometimes as little as like one company of like 5 or 6 people, and they would just destroy them and take that part. Because the South Vietnamese army really wasn't that strong. They were not ready to fight. Finally, after that battle, we were just having trouble. And the next 4 years was nothing but trying to help this country get back on its feet and not completely get taken over by communism. We worked our best. We trained their soldiers. Our guys were dying, and they weren't 100% sure what they were dying for. Nobody really was, and they had no idea what they were dying for, but they were dying anyway. And they were fighting anyway because that's the heart of an American soldier. And they fought anyway. But in 1975, on November 30th, we finally had enough. And so we shipped out on November 30th, 75, I apologize. And within the next day or two, the North Vietnamese army demolished South Vietnam and took over the entire country. In America, during this war in America, it was not a good time. People were just, anti-war protests were everywhere. People were just mean, and they were angry about everything, and they had to complain about something at all times. They always found something to be angry about. These people they outnumbered the people who did love this country and supported their boys who were going over there and fighting for something that sometimes they couldn't even answer. These people were given the nickname the hippies, and they would run around with signs, and they claimed to be peaceful, but a lot of times they were just mean, and they were attacking others and throwing things at our soldiers coming back home. And it didn't help, and it made a lot of things worse. And those soldiers did not deserve that treatment, but that's the treatment they got. In America, at the same time, Lyndon B. Johnson, our president, was, for the first time, really being questioned. Before then, the president was really not questioned by a lot of people. He was, was well respected, and nobody questioned what he said. They just went along with it. Around this time, when the war started, people said, you know what, I don't think what Lyndon B. Johnson is doing is right. And so they started talking about him and, just being very disrespectful and very not kind to a president, a person who leads our country. Very unfair. And the Watergate scandal happened at the same time with Richard Nixon. That made people trust this country even less. Donald Maxwell wrote a scholarly article titled, "These Are the Things You Gain If You Make Our Country Your Country: U.S. Vietnam War, Draft Resistors and Military Deserters, and the Meaning of Citizenship in North America in the 1970s. Maxwell states, residency in Canada opened the possibility for a different type of citizenship for American men, one less concerned with their potential contribution to the military might of a nation and more tolerant of their freedom of expression, which might include opposition to war." I disagree with this statement. I think that the Americans, I think that the people who were moving to Canada, yes, they were moving there because of that war, but they were not moving there to get away from the American culture. I think the American culture was fine, and I think that the only reason they left was because they didn't want to fight, not for anything more or anything less. Yuri Espiruta wrote a scholarly article titled "The Apparition of American War Memories, a Critical Juxtaposition of the Holocaust and the Vietnam War." Espiruta quotes, "The Holocaust enables the United States to re-narrate national glory. The Vietnam War calls attention to U.S. defeat and upsets the narrative of rescue and liberation." I'm impartial on this quote. I think what he says about the Holocaust is right. Everybody can get really patriotic when we talk about how we stopped the Holocaust from happening. But a lot of people want to hush when it comes to the Vietnam War. I think that's a problem. So I can be impartial on this quote. And finally, Mr. Ross writes a scholarly article titled "Generation Apocalypse Now, the Vietnam War's Culture and Legacy in the Global War on Terror." Ross states, "The recent wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the war in Vietnam have helped ensure Vietnam's continued relevance as soldiers in the global war on terror have looked to the culture of the Vietnam War and hoped that it would guide them in the struggle to define their own war." I agree with this, because the guys in Iraq didn't really know what they were fighting for, and neither did Vietnam guys. So I can totally agree with this quote. So those are my views on the war. I think that the war was a good thing, and we lost a lot of men, but I think we need to respect those men for what they did. Thank you.